HongTat providing this opportunity. Yeah, and then little bit about myself. So I'm Teo Kai Kiong. So currently I'm working in DG as a full stack developer. Yeah. Then from time to time, yeah, I enjoying develop project using Angular. Hope everyone doing well.
That's great. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you for volunteering to lead the study group.
Yeah, I think if the participant are there, so yeah, you can start anytime.
Yeah.
Or we need to wait for another like few minutes, two more minutes.
You can start when you're comfortable.
Oh, okay. So maybe I can start now.
Okay. I'll be making a recording, by the way.
Oh, okay. So today we are going to talk about the services. And when we talk about services, so there will be the dependency injection and also the HTTP and observable. So before I go into, so make sure you guys are familiar with the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and TypeScript. Yeah, I believe that was covered previously. So before I talk about the services, we'll talk about why we need the services. Okay, so maybe just go to the project that I prepared beforehand. So as you can see, this is a very simple Angular project.
Sorry for interrupting. Could you make your font bigger?
Sorry. Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a fairly simple project that I prepared beforehand. So there are app module. So the app module consists of the app components. And then in the app component, we have a components, user list components. So what this user list component consists of is the list of the user array, hard-coded list of user arrays. So if we go to the browser, as you can see, the app is working well. So let's say we are going to have a new requirements that we are going to have another view that display the user's details. So including the ID, the names, and the email. So what we're going to do is we can create a user detail components. So inside, let's go to the TypeScript file first. So inside this empty component. So in the template HTML, we can look through the users, and then we can display their ID, name, and emails. So what we can do for now is we can just take the array from the user list and then just copy over to the can just go to the component there and just paste it. And then we should assume the codes works. So when we go into the before that, I need to show it. We need to the user detail component in the app components. So as you go in, look into the browser, the information will show as expected. So we fulfill the requirements, but is it the right solutions? Not really, because what this will cause the, because this is violating some of the good programming principles. So first of it is the try. So do not repeat yourself. Here in user list, we are hard-coded the list of user array, and then we also copy and paste it in here. So this is not a good practice to do. And then secondly, we are violating the single responsibility principle as well. Okay, so what that means is the user detail and the user list components supposed to only like responsible for the view logics. So it's not really responsible for the constructing the user list. So the solution is we can use the services in Angular to solve this issue. So what exactly is the service? It's actually a class with a specific purpose. So from the example that I provide, it can use to share the data across the components. So in our case, we can use the service to share the user array data across the user list and user details components. Then secondly, the service can also use for the helpers. So let's imagine you are developing some apps, and then you will require to logs all the like potential error. So in our case, in this case, you can implement a logger services and then use it across the app. Then the third maybe is the you can implement the application logics. So let's say in our user services, we can implement like specific business logic to use across the app. So let's say users can input their age, and then we can use the age to calculate their the birth of then so but how do we use the services? The answer is we can use the dependency injections. So for this dependency injection, first I will talk about the drawbacks without the dependency injections, and then how it can benefit us in Angular. So as you look at the code in here, we have a engine class and a type class, and then we have a vehicle that consists of the engine and type. So in order to build the vehicle, we are required to construct the engines, and the type maybe is a plane or a trucks. Yeah. So what if, so the code works well here, but what if someday the requirements changes, so we need to pass the new parameters in the engine class. So the vehicle that consume the engine class will broke because we need to update the engines class that we new up here. So there are two problems with without the dependency injection. First of it is not flexible. So as you can see here, the codes will break when we introduce the new parameter to engine. So this happened as well to the type class. And then the second drawbacks is the hard to unit test. So what this means is, so let's say we are going to test a new engines with like new engines, and then we can't really let's say we are going to test mock old engines, so we can't really mock the class here, and then so it really not a good to implement without the DI. So with the DI, how we can implement is instead of new out the engines and the type class in our vehicle constructor, we can pass it in our constructor as a parameter. So what this does will, so every time we use the new vehicle, even with the new parameters provided, so the vehicle class will not break. So the code still work as usual. And then it's easier for us to write the unit test as well, because we can mock our data to like use the old engine or the new engines, or with the trucks, or with the truck with the planes type. So, but how we are going to use the dependency injection in Angular? So because Angular is a framework, so actually we have a dependency injector in Angular. So what the injector responsible is, you can imagine the injector as a container that consists of the key value pairs inside the containers. So in our case, we can register our, we can create the users services in our apps, and then register the user services in the dependency injection container in Angular. So user list and user details component that need the user services can benefit from the dependency injections. Okay, so now we can I can show you how to create the service in Angular. So let's go back to the code. So these are the steps actually to create the Angular service. First, we need to define this service class. To do that, we can use the Angular CLI. To do that, let me stop the, all right. So we can make use of the ng. G is generate, and then S is the service. Then we can name our user service. Right, so then you can navigate to your, so you create a service TS file here. So the, oh, I think, let me delete this one. We can skip the service actually. So we can just, because the naming convention will usually be the service name, and they will have a service that generated by Angular CLI automatically. All right, so now we can navigate to our user service. So as you can see, there's an injectable decorator here. So what does this mean is actually it tells Angular that this service class might also need some dependencies from other services. So so this just if we take this away, it will just like a plain TypeScript class, so it doesn't related to Angular. Okay, so in here we can create a new method, say get users. And we can directly return. So I will just copy paste from the array here. Just like empty. Then I will do the same for the user detail. All right. So back to our service class. Let me close this one. Right. So now we implemented a method to get the users from hard-coded actually. So we'll go to, so the second step, as you can see, we need to register this service to the DI container. But how do we do that? We can provide, we can specify it in the providers. So just say user service, then we need to import it as well. All right, so what this does is actually we registered our user service to the Angular DI container. So go back to the user list. How we can use the is to inject the dependencies in the components that using it. So in our case, we are going to inject it in the user list and the user list user detail components. So we can specify it as private service. Then you are required to import it as well. All right, so in our ng inits lifecycle, we can assign the local users variables to use the user service method to get the users. So this dot users go to user service and users. So we will do the same for the user details component. Then if we restart our app, so yeah, so we can see that our user list and user detail components now getting their users array result from the user service instead of the in their localized user array. I might go a little bit fast. All right. So the place that we register the service is also quite important, because the dependency injection in Angular system is work as the hierarchical. So what this means is, if we register the user list in our user list component, so for example, you can always register in here as well. So there's a provider parameters. So when you register in the user list level, so only the child that associate with the user list can only use the service. So it's not really a good idea to register here, because it will use across the user details as well. And then what if we register it in our app components? Yeah, so for this case, the user list and the user details component and their associate children can use the user service, but it's still not really a good idea to register in app component providers, because usually our features might grow, and then we will have more than one components. So it's a good idea to like uh, register it in the app modules level. Yeah. So for now, we are having the hard-coded HTTPs, hard-coded user arrays. So in the real live applications, we often need to get the data from some kind of maybe servers or the third-party APIs. So we are required to, in Angular, we can use the HTTP to get those data. But before I show you how we can implement that, so here, currently our user list and user details components are consuming the user list array from the user service. So in order to get it from like server and third-party API, we'll use the HTTP protocol to do it. So what happens here is the user service will get, and then the HTTP client will be responsible for the request. So we will request the user array from the servers, and then we'll get it from database. So here is quite simple, just get and request. And then what happens in the response is it will will return the response, and then the HTTP will return the observable to the user service. But what actually is a observable? So to explain that, I prepare quite a simple analogy to help you understand it. So here we have a cow farms. So and then we have a milk factory. So what the milk factories does is get the source, the milk source from the farms, and then the first thing it will do is like packaging it, yeah, and then process it. So once it's done, the things it will distribute it out to the houses. But will it distributed to all the houses? No, it will only distributed to the houses that subscribe to it. So compare it to our examples. So the user service here is the factories. So the user service will get the users list array from some kind of database or the third-party APIs, and then in returns it will get the observable. But in order the user list and user details can consume the user array, first we need to cast the observable to something that we can understand, the application can understand. So usually we'll create an interface and then cast it into the user list. And then only the user list and user details component that subscribe to it will get the response from the user service. So other like the other component will not get until it subscribed to the user service. Right, so here's we are going to demo. Then, so here's the steps to implement the HTTP and observable. So first we need to implement the GET request in user service. So let's head back to our code. But first we need to import the HTTP client module. So what the HTTP client module does is it simplified the HTTP in order to get our data. So previously, if not mistaken, the HTTP back in Angular 4, we are using the HTTP module, but in Angular 5, they introduced a new module called HTTP client module, which simplified the APIs. So we can import it in our like how we import other module. So we need to import it here. So we'll be under the Angular common and HTTP. Okay. So once we done import the HTTP client module, we can use it in our user service. So that's the injectable decorators comes into play because we are required HTTP client dependencies in our user service. So if you remove this and import the HTTP client module, it will not work. Maybe I can show you if we remove this, right? This will still work because it doesn't have any dependencies. So let's go back to our browsers. If we refresh it, yeah, the app still works because the user service does not require any dependencies now. So in order, let me revert back. So we'll need to import the HTTP client dependencies. So Okay, it helped me import it. Let me remove that. So instead of the hard-coded user array, so what I'm going to use, I think, let's search some third-party APIs. I think we can use, we can use the GitHub API. So this .http.get. So the first parameter here is usually the API URL, the endpoints URL. So here we can copy here and then so if you hover into the get, so it will return the observable here. So but we don't want to, so in order to work with the user array, we need to cast it into the but how we can do that? We can, for the simplicity, I will create an interface here. Call it iUsers. So let's see what the property that we want to display. Okay, I think we can have the ID, which is a number, and then the we can use this login, which is a string. Okay, so we need to cast, we can cast it here. So we use the iUsers, and then is in an array form. Also, this method will return the observable, which is in iUser type. So we are required to import the observable. So it will import from the RJS. So for those that are not familiar with the RJS is actually the external JavaScript libraries to help us work with the observable type. So it stands for the reactive extension JavaScript. So we will not really cover this RJS in today's session because it's a quite complicated library. So let's look at the step. So we implement the GET request from user service. So we also cast the response into the user array. So we create the interface for that. Then the next thing we are going to do is subscribe to the observable in the component that we need. So in our example, it will be the user list and user details. So let's go to our user list. So as you can see, here is throwing error because we are not really using this anymore. So we can remove this. So how we can get it? So we subscribe it. And then the first usually is the response. So we can call it data maybe. We can assign it to our local user variables. Then we can do the same thing for the user detail component. So we are going to use the fat error to do this. So if we go back to our okay, so as you can see, we are fetching the users from the GitHub, but there's some issues. I think because we are using the wrong property in our user list. So I think it's not named. Now we can call it login. Yeah. And same as the user details. So we don't have email. Let's remove that. Then so yeah, so now we are getting the list of users, not from the hard-coded array, but instead we get it from some third-party API. In our case, we are consuming the GitHub APIs. So here all right, I think my slide is over. So I think the time is still early. So, okay, maybe I can show how to handle the abstractions. So in our, let's say we make this break. So as you can see, we are getting error because the URL is not valid. So how we can handle the abstraction? First, we can handle it in here. So if you look at the second callback, there's a arrow callback functions we can utilize. So can it will return the message. Right. So if we refresh this, I think we need to do the same thing. So I can see it will console log the error message here. So that's one of the way to handle the error. So maybe in your real life application, you can implement a logger and then do it automatically for you. So the second one is we can handle it in the user service level. So how we can do that is we can utilize the RHS pipe, and then we can catch the error. So, but before that, we need to import it from the operators. So this will be functions. Not really. Let me just see, because I forget how to use the cache error. So this is how we cache the error in service. So we can utilize the cache error pipe, the operators in the pipe operators. So we can just console.log, or we can rethrow it back to our components. So in our components, we can handle it as well. Then the another one is cache the error globally using the HTTP injectors. So I think, yeah, that's it from me for these sessions.
That's great. Thank you, Kai Kiong. We did have a few questions in the chat, but HongTat has replied. Any other questions from anyone? Or if you'd like to unmute yourself to have a discussion, we have some time left.
Yeah, we have like 14 minutes left. Yeah, any question you can ask here.
Then HongTat will answer it for you.
Today you are the expert.
Anyone? Oh, Akid has a question. Oh, can we have the video recording? Yes, we will be uploading the video recording. Please be patient, and we will share the link when it's ready. Actually, we also have a study group WhatsApp that you can join to get all the latest information. Let me give you the link. Otherwise, we will also post on our usual meetup or Facebook Women Who Code Kuala Lumpur channel for the video link.
Can the slide deck to be shared? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we still have 13 minutes left. Maybe Kai Kiong gonna sing a song. Just kidding.
Yeah, please don't scare Channing. I've only just asked if he would help with the next session, and he said yes.
Who's that?
So Jenning, he just
Oh,
joined.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is the right WhatsApp group. So please join. If you want to discuss further about Angular or .NET Core, you can chat in the WhatsApp, and we will also give you the Zoom link. The video link afterwards. And I can ask if normally this is using on-call API only.
Normally services in most of the cases, yeah, we are using the API calls, but we can always also use it to implement our application logics. Yeah.
Razia also has a question. Can you explain a GET request with parameters?
Yeah, so get requests with parameters. Let's go to the code. So, let's reword this, which is not really working. So I think in the seconds, we can specify our params here. So you can pass your parameter in the second parameter. Yeah. Hope that answer your questions. Yeah.
Maybe you can share a get with parameter and a post with parameter. The parameter, I think she means the parameter that we need to pass it back to the server.
Okay. Or maybe I can find.
If you put the ID at the back, the
Okay.
GitHub API.
So usually
Yeah.
the get parameters is passed using the query params. So let me search some user. Let's get HongTat. So we can pass it like this. So to be more dynamic, you can always specify your ID here. So in this case, it's a string. So we can use the string populations. So instead of this, yeah. So not sure if the code will breaks. Yeah. So usually this is how the you pass the parameters in the get request. Can logic store in component? Yeah, can, but if something really specific like to the service, is more recommended to store it in the service level instead of the components, because usually components is responsible for the view logics. Yeah, any question? We still have 8 minutes. In Angular, usually we are working with the observable. Yeah, so you can use parameters, but the best practice is to use the observable, which is comes from the RJS.
You're welcome to unmute yourself if you have further questions, because we're not sure whether you know Kai Kyung is answering your questions or not. Okay, we have
Yeah.
one more question. Since we are subscribing, do we need to unsubscribe?
Yeah, these are good questions. Yeah, in best practice, we are requiring to unsubscribe. So how we can unsubscribe that? There are a few ways. So let me record this. Go in the user list. So after we subscribe, usually uh, we can unsubscribe it when we can utilize the ng on destroy method. So how we can unsubscribe is this dot users service dot users. Sorry, I forgot already.
No. Can show you the code. You go to the Visual Studio Code.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, on the subscribe here, right? They'll return a subscription, and you have to pass the subscription into a class variable.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So you maybe you create a one variable under the user called subscription, under the public user. Yep, under here. Call subscriptions. And the type will be subject. No, don't equal to something. Yeah, you can put a new subject as well. Yep, this subject. Go to new subject. Yep. Okay, and under the subscription, right, you assign the under the subscribe function, you assign it back to a subscription on line 17.
So you mean here
Subscription,
dot
yes, is equal to no. Is equal to yeah, the following line, you move it to the top. No, you move it to line 70. Append after, yep, and then
is missing.
small s. Yeah, yep.
Small s. ways actually. Okay. We can unsubscribe. Yeah.
Yes.
Then the another way is we can use the string type in our HTML template. So it will be like I cannot use the is this one. So it will be something like this. Yeah, we can use the sim pipe as well. So in the HTML template, we can specify the async, and then it will auto subscribe and unsubscribe the subscriptions.
Can you share the link to this article in the chat, please? Oh,
Yeah, sure.
someone has already done that. Okay. Okay, thanks so much. We also had a question whether you would be able to share the code, maybe in GitHub or something.
Yeah, I will upload this code to the GitHub and then share it with you guys later.
Okay. Any final questions before we finish? No? If no, then thank you so much, Kak Kyung, for this wonderful session today. And
Thank you,
I guess
everyone.
we'll see everyone next week. Yeah, please join our WhatsApp group if you have further question or if you want to do any other discussions, okay? Okay, bye-bye. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Bye.